You can have the best audio equipment, the best video equipment, the nicest studio, the nicest room, the most expensive guitar, and it doesn't matter. You can be self-taught to a certain degree and still do really well. I think ultimately that's where good content comes from. If you generally enjoy playing something and it gives you joy and you love it, there's going to be someone else that loves it. Do something new. And I think that's what I try to do, is I try to find these arrangements and pieces that has not necessarily been recorded 1,000 times.
He's got a podcast, video podcast, where he interviews different guitarists on YouTube.
You sound just as good live in person as you do in your recordings.
I'm not a fast, flashy player. If anything, I feel like that makes you more qualified to teach.
I try very hard to seem like I don't care and that I'm just like screwing around. That's part of the strategy.
He's a big YouTuber.
Yeah,
he's a big YouTuber.
Guitar. Yeah.
What's your name, man?
Beyond the Guitar. You look it up there. Yeah.
Well, check you out, man.
Thank you, sir.
This is probably the only time I'm ever going to get to touch a silver play button.
Stop it. Don't even say that stuff, man.
What advice would you give other guitarists looking to start a YouTube channel today?
Just give up. It's not gonna happen.
It seems like music videos as a whole in the guitar scene, like everybody's struggling.
I'd be lying if I said the whole process is not a little bit frustrating at times.
It's weird though, because like I got like 150K subs.
Yeah.
And some of the content it really does not do that well.
When you practice so hard and you put something out and it doesn't get the views you think it's going to get, it's disappointing.
It's like my YouTube channel is this house of cards that'll fall apart at any minute.
I don't have my nail dryer with me, so we just kind of do this. This is fine.
You're watching GuitarTubers.
Today we are chatting with Michael DOBKIN, classical guitarist on YouTube. 12,000 subscribers and 1.4 million lifetime views. Michael, thanks for taking the time, man.
I'm glad to be on. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, big fan of your work. What inspired you to start a YouTube channel and start posting content?
Actually, starting the YouTube channel was an accident. I never really intended to start a YouTube channel. Of course, I think like most people started with COVID, everybody having a lot more time. And at the time I went from being out of the house full time to working from home and with a lot less hours. And I started playing my guitar more and more to the point where I was playing 3-4 hours a day. Prior to that, I was playing here and there, not that much. And so I started recording myself just on an old phone. And I posted the video just on Facebook, just for friends and families. And I got a really good response. And that kind of motivated me to keep going and learning new pieces. And then there was one video I posted that I just put on YouTube, not to showcase for the world, but just as a digital drive, just to keep my content there. And I totally forgot about it. And I went back a week later and all of a sudden I have 50, 60 subscribers and many views. And I was caught off guard. I thought, oh, maybe I'm onto something. And the feedback was really positive. And I think that's what kept me going. It was the people kept giving me positive feedback. So I started making another video and another video, and it gained some traction. And before I knew it, I was doing it regularly and enjoying it. And that's kind of how it built up. The way I see the videos for me, it's like a time capsule. It's nice to get the views. It's nice to get the subscribers. But at the end of the day, I'm really doing it for me.
That's awesome.
Again, like some videos do well, some don't do well. But at the end of the day, every single video I watch back, or sometimes they pop up on my feed, I can say, oh, that's where I was at that time. Oh, I remember I was on vacation or we were going to go, or I remember that was a really difficult one, or that was really easy, or that was fun, or that was terrible. So to me, it's like each video tells a story, and that's what it is. But there is also the community, which I've grown to love. I have all my regulars a comment, and all these new people messaging me both privately and on the channel. And it's also become a big part of the community. I like to be engaged in that. It just keeps me connected and I get to meet guys like you, and you open me up to a whole new world of community, which I don't even know that exists, because there's just so much good stuff out there. And I think the YouTube does keep me connected to other people. So it's got many levels. It's a complicated beast, but to answer your question, I don't think there's one reason for doing it. I think it all just comes together, and that's what I really like about it.
That's interesting. You and I have a lot in common. I was also a COVID-born artist, started 3 years ago. But the difference is I had much more selfish ambitions. I was like, oh, I want to make this my career. Look at me, everyone. Look at, I can play One Winged Angel, or just, something, very shallow aspirations. And I've actually had to, over the last few years, look at it more the way you do. Like, the videos have sort of become a time capsule. And as I've matured as a person, in the last few years, I've realized that this channel really is, from the beginning should have been for me, but that's how it is today for me, more so than it was, back in 2020. So I think you're way ahead of the curve in that respect.
I'm quite fortunate. I don't know. I'm born in 81, so you can do the math. So I feel like, the ages are all over the place, but I think the difference for me is I'm already established, been working professionally for more than 20 years. I'm married. I got a wonderful wife, 2 lovely children. So I've always kind of viewed it as a hobby. I did study classical guitar professionally, but it was never intended for it to be my career. But onto the doing things for yourself, I think ultimately that's where good content comes from. When you do something that you love and something where you want to do it to improve yourself, and then I think others will feed off of that. There were some videos where I tried to do it for other people, and generally those videos don't do as well. I don't know, somehow it translates.
What's an example of one of the videos you did more for other people versus yourself?
I'll never do a song unless I truly enjoy playing it. So if I don't enjoy playing it, I won't record it. If it's too difficult for me and it's going to take me 6 months to learn, I will not use up all my time to learn one song just to put up a video. But there are some arrangements which I picked really simple arrangements because I thought people might appreciate or like it, and then it kind of didn't do well. But the trade-off is I don't invest a lot of time making my videos. In the beginning, when I made my videos, I would pump up 2-3 a week because I try to be as efficient as possible. I'd learn the piece, record it, and then eventually my setup became a little bit bigger, got the lighting, got the sound equipment. But if you look at all my videos, to the core of it, it's a really basic setup. I think in the moment when you practice so hard and you put something out and it doesn't get the views you think it's going to get, it's disappointing. But it's disappointing in the moment because YouTube is, like I said, is such a funny beast, because 3 months later, 4 months later, it pops out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, where did this come from? All it takes is one share, it's the algorithm. I don't understand it. I don't know how it works, but
yeah,
it's working. Yeah.
Same here. You probably have noticed in our Discord channel, there's quite a bit of chatter at times in the analytics. You have tons of guitarists and creators out there trying to figure that very thing out. Like, well, how do I please the algorithm? How do I grow? How do I grow my audience? How do I? If you just go back in that chat history, we end up just talking in circles, and a lot of the answers that we come up with are just, we don't come up with any answers. And I think at the end of the day, your comment about doing it for yourself and that being the best result in terms of quality of content, that's always what it comes down to. When we try to, or when I try to pander to the audience and things don't go well, it definitely gets discouraging.
Oh yeah.
I've noticed that you have tons of awesome tracks, especially in your South American playlist.
Yeah.
That's the one that I I have been listening to for the last week or so in preparation of the interview. I was listening to it this morning, listening to it last week. Can you take us through your creative process a bit? How do you choose a song? First of all, how do you choose a song to arrange? And then how long does it take you from, choosing the song to here's a finished video?
That's a good question. I'll give you the very, as briefly as possible without going into over details. The first thing starts with finding music that I like. And I'll, sometimes I hear other people play it. I'm like, oh, I'd like to play it myself. And I'll take the same arrangement and do my own version. Often I'll go, generally these days it's online, through different scores. And if something looks interesting, I generally try to, usually the free ones or the copyright free ones end up on my lap somehow. And I try to focus on that so I can share that with everyone else. And if there's something that just looks good on paper, I'll print it out. I'll give it a playthrough. If it seems like it's going to be good, I'll decide to learn it. To learn a song generally will take me anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks. Generally, if it takes me more than 2 weeks, then I kind of don't really have too much interest in it. There has been a handful of songs where I spent 2 to 3 months on that I'm quite very proud of on the channel. But that's kind of a few times a year. So I'll learn the song. It takes about, let's say on average, a week. But at the same time, I'll learn other songs. So I kind of call it like a factory, like an assembly line. So I'll
like a pipeline.
So I'll be in the end stages of this one, middle stages of this one, beginning stages of this one, and typically 2 to 3 songs at a time. Sometimes only 2, sometimes only 1, never more than 3 at a time. So it'll take me a week on average, sometimes less, a week to learn it. And then once I feel I'm performance ready, and it has to be so ready to the point where I can play it 4 times and it's going to be identical. I know exactly what it's going to sound like. Then I'll pop up my camera and record my audio, 2-3 takes, and that's it. And then the editing process, again, I try to be as efficient as possible. I don't spend more than an hour tops putting a video together. I just put one out today that I did yesterday. And it took me, I think, from the start of recording to the end of recording, with editing, getting everything ready to post online, took me about an hour and a half total. And that's typically what I don't, it's not, like I said, I don't do it for my job. I don't do it for my, I don't do it to get more subscribers. It's so if I have to spend too much time on it, first of all, I don't have the time. So I've become really efficient, I would say. And I think it's, depending on your schedule, you can enjoy the process and draw it out and make it a full-time thing and go back, or you could just record and post.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a diminished marginal utility or return on time versus if you spend 1 hour recording audio and you've practiced it sufficiently versus spending 3 to 4 hours, the difference in the end product is often worse sometimes, because then it doesn't sound natural. It's almost hard to call your production humble because your audio sounds great. To hear you say that you don't spend as much time on it just adds to the charm of it and speaks to you're doing it for yourself versus the views and the audience. You know?
Thank you. Yeah. It's funny because I feel like my audio and video compared to like all the great guys you interviewed, Adam from TV on Guitar and Beyond the Guitar and all that, I feel like their audio and video is like a step above, and I'm shooting on my iPhone. And I do have like a simple interface. The biggest decision I have to make in the editing process is how much reverb do I want to use? And that's my biggest thing. And I'll obsess over the reverb because, if it's too much, it sounds very artificial. If it's not enough, I don't feel like it's giving the concert performance. 99.9% of the work in making my videos is the practice. That's all it is. And
Yeah.
I know people know that, but I don't know if they understand that. You can have the best audio equipment, the best video equipment, the nicest studio, the nicest room, the most expensive guitar, and it doesn't matter. It's what you put in. And it doesn't have to be hours, but it has to be consistent. And I think that's where a lot of people fail when they learn any instrument, is that they want that quick results. So they try to compensate with everything else. Let me do this, let me do that. And they just need to focus on the playing. And I think that's what it is. Yeah.
100%. The more time you put in the practice, the easier time you're going to have recording, the easier time you're going to have editing, the easier time the entire process is if you put in the time to practice.
Absolutely.
I've definitely learned that the hard way. When you try to rush a piece into production, or any phase, if you rush practice, you're going to have a very tedious time. And I've experienced that a few times. Speaking of practice, how often do you practice guitar these days, though? Like focus practice when you're trying to hone a specific technique?
Zero. I feel like I feel like I paid my dues through university, where in university, and I'm sure you can relate, when you're learning a new instrument, and particularly guitar, you're bound by a set of pieces that you have to learn, all the classical, all the staples, and that's how you become a proficient player. Learn, a classical piece, a Renaissance piece, a Baroque piece, do a few modern pieces, practice this, practice that, do your Villa-Lobos standards. And I think that's where it comes from, and do your scales and all that. And I did all that. And while I enjoyed it when I did it, I wouldn't say I enjoy playing scales now. I don't enjoy, I don't need to, because the repertoire that I'm doing right now, most of it is sight readable for me. And you could probably tell from my videos, most of them I am sight reading. My eyes is on the music. And I think what allows me to produce these really quick turnaround for videos is ever since I started guitar at age 10, and from early on, I became a very proficient sight reader. And I'm so grateful for that. I'd say up to grade 6, 7 level, I can pretty much sight read it through. So when it comes to practicing, I don't necessarily need to practice the whole song. I'll practice the hard passages. And that's where I might need to memorize the hard passages, because my eyes need to be on my fingers rather than the music. For me, it comes to a point, if I'm doing it for enjoyment, I'm going to focus my time learning the pieces, and I don't feel like I need to practice it. If I am practicing, it's focusing on the hard passages, or I did do a handful of really difficult pieces that took me months, and that's where I really feel like I'm practicing. But technique, zero. Been there, done that. Paid my dues.
Yeah, that is relatable. Yeah. I did not practice guitar formally. I'm 100% self-taught, so I can't relate to having paid my dues. But in terms of actual technique practice, yeah, I am embarrassed to say that I don't.
I'm surprised to hear you're self-taught, because I would not guess that from your guitar playing. Have you never taken lessons or formal lessons?
No, I went to music school for a year, but it wasn't for classical guitar. And then I dropped out just because I couldn't afford it anymore. I was a starving student. But how long have you been playing, actually? Because I think we've been playing around the same amount of time.
Slightly long. I started when I was a child. So I took lessons as a child. So I would say at age 9 or 10. So over 30 years. Okay. And I ended up doing my Bachelor of Music at the University of Toronto for classical guitar. But I went the music education route rather than the performance. So I got my Bachelor of Music in Education, which is what I do now, is education. I'm a middle school teacher. I teach grade 8. And that's why I call it kind of my hobby.
I've had the privilege of interviewing, a handful of different guitarists so far from different walks of life. And I've noticed the ones that, like you, who started in childhood and had a formal education in music, they tend to have such a leg up musically. It comes out in your production, it comes out in your performance, it comes out in the conversation. And I've noticed that, compared to somebody like me who's like totally self-taught, there's a lot of ignorance on my end, even with the most basic things. Like I've only recently discovered the Raschiato. I've only recently discovered the rest stroke. I knew I was doing them to some degree, not knowing their name. So, again, that's just an example of, ignorance of not coming from a formal education like you.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And I was very fortunate enough, speaking of Raschiato, when I was 16, and if you dig hard enough on YouTube, you can find it. I was part of this nouveau flamenco group, whatever you want to call it, with the former teacher at the time.
We're going to play something called Coco from my CD.
Juan Tomas playing Coco.
And he got me to be his backup rhythm player.
Oh, nice.
And we used to do all these morning TV shows and performances. You were talking about not having the formal training. I think these days you can be self-taught to a certain degree and still do really well because of the breadth and wealth of knowledge that's out there online. And you can relate because we're the same generation. I remember when I wanted to learn a new piece when I was a teenager, there was two ways of doing it. You'd listen to the record and try to play it back, or you'd go to the music store, and if you're fortunate enough, you could buy the music. But for someone like me who didn't have enough or didn't always have the money to buy the music, I'd try to memorize the music through the score and then come home. And the difference is today, and I remind this to the younger people, how fortunate they are that they can get any answer they want, any YouTube video, how to do something so easily. And there's just so much good content out there, one better than the other, of tutorials and explanations and demos. Almost too much information, maybe for someone who's new and a beginner. And that's another thing that I learned early on. There's always going to be someone better than you. I'm always blown away how many great players there are. Some that you know and some that we don't even know that just come up on my feed. I'm like, wow, that's a really great player. And
it blows my mind too.
Yeah.
So many great players out there.
Tons.
And YouTube makes it, and especially the ones that you just have unlimited time in production and post-production, you can definitely, they may not even be the great players, but they certainly come off as great players.
Oh, yeah.
That also, if you're comparing yourself with the ideal, version of themselves that they're putting out, I talk about this a lot with, other creators where it's just like, I can only speak for myself, but a lot of what I do is, smoke and mirrors. The piece that is played is highly edited. Can I play a rough playthrough of it? Yes, but it will not sound anywhere as good as what you're listening to on the video. What you're watching and listening to. So
it's funny you talk about that because actually I didn't learn that lesson till later on. The tips and tricks of editing, because the recording aspect was brand new to me. I've only ever kind of played live for people. And I remember in the beginning, the really early stages, it would take me a lot longer to record something because I would record, let's say, a 3-minute piece and it would be ruined by one note. And I would start over and I record it and I would start over. And if you look at my early stuff, like the basic hand cam, like the simple camera, I mean, you can see those mistakes, but it's still a true performance. And now, like you said, and it's common, everybody does it with the slicing and editing, but that's happened since the early days of recording. It's nothing new because when you're putting out a YouTube performance, it's there forever. As opposed to a live, if I was to play it live and I make a mistake, by the time I get to the end of the song, you wouldn't know where the mistake was. You'd forget about it. But still, when I try to record, I try to do as minimal editing as possible. If someone is getting to the point where they're slicing and slicing and slicing, it does take away from it.
Yeah, and I've heard that feedback before where editing and post and splicing your best takes together has been done since the beginning of time. It is important to remember that we're not the first ones to do that.
Yeah.
So maybe don't feel as guilty as maybe I do.
Again, there's I try to do it, like if it gets to the point where I have to start a piece over, then I'll just take another 2-3 days. I'll say, you know what, I'm just not ready. Let me just practice a bit more.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of learned how much I can do. It's also more work, post-editing and slicing. So the better you're prepared, the less you have to do the editing, yeah.
Definitely. I know that you started your channel for yourself versus trying to grow an audience, but what advice would you give to other guitarists and musicians out there looking to start a YouTube channel today?
It's a difficult question because there's so many reasons to do something. But in general, if you want to start a YouTube channel for guitar, start with good repertoire. I think that's the number one thing. Play pieces you love to play. If you generally enjoy playing something and it gives you joy and you love it, there's going to be someone else that loves it and they'll feed off of that. Don't play pieces or record pieces because you think everybody has to listen to Romanza or Astorius. Don't do that to get the views. Do something new. And I think that's what I try to do is I try to find these arrangements and pieces that has not necessarily been recorded 1,000 times. And it is a little bit more difficult to find those pieces and arrangements, but they do exist. And that's where I get the real thrill of posting, is because it hasn't been done before, or this particular type of arrangement at this particular level has not been done. A second tip I would advise is if you're going to invest money in a YouTube channel, and I'm sure you've heard this before, the number one thing you should invest in is your audio. If you're going to put money into something, forget the camera, forget the lighting, start with the audio. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If your playing is good and people like your playing, they will feed off of that. And you just got to do it. And if the one video doesn't go to your expectations, post another video and another and another and another. And I think, and you can relate, eventually YouTube will kind of guide you of what people like and what they don't like. And should you choose to conform to what people like, at least you get that feedback and you can work off of that. And you could say, oh, they really like the South American. Let me do more South American. That's kind of how it began for me, where I went for 4, 5, 6 South American pieces till I got tired of it and wanted to do something different. Oh, they like the pop. Let me do a few pop. Post regularly. So if you're going to post, whether it's once a month, once every 6 weeks, once every 2 weeks, but do it regularly so you can have that experience and practice of putting content out there. Yeah.
Great advice. I definitely learned some of that the hard way.
I think we all did.
In terms of repertoire pieces, that's an interesting one. Because I've asked that same question of everybody that I've interviewed so far, and repertoire piece is one that I don't think gets talked about enough. One of the things that I did early on was maybe pigeonhole myself into video game music, where I feel like my audience, my core audience, that's really all they want to listen to. Because anytime I tend to branch out from that in various ways, like if it's a tutorial video or if it's an interview, the best performing videos are the video game ones. So when you say repertoire piece, I think that's really important. You're talking about play stuff that you love, not that you think others will love.
Yeah, I can relate. And I don't think it's ever too late to get out of a certain genre. A lot of the video game music is based on classical music. Sometimes you have to kind of train your audience. Well, this is what I'm doing now, and you can come with me through this experience. And I think the people that know you will stick along. I always say, like, if somebody unsubscribes, they're doing me a favor, because you don't want any subscribers who are not interested in listening to your music. So they're actually being courteous by unsubscribing, because they're, well, maybe that's not for me. And then your core audience, it engages more in the platform. So yeah, it's like I said, you have to think of it as a long-term game. And if you think of it from piece to piece to piece, then you could end up with disappointment. It's the long-term game. And it depends on what your goal is. Like I said, for me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's nice to have the subscriber count. Do I have goals? Yes, I have certain goals, but if I don't reach them, I won't lose any sleep over it. That's for sure.
Speaking of your goals, I am interested in hearing what some of them are, and where do you see yourself, your YouTube channel, and your music career in the next 5 years?
So I don't know if I've thought that far ahead. I think ultimate goal, and I joke around this with my kids, is to get that silver play button, which is 100,000 subscribers. Now, in the big world of YouTube, 100,000 has not become that much for successful content. I'm shocked how many people there are with millions that I've never heard of. So I would say my lifetime goal, if I ever reach it, maybe I will, maybe I won't, doesn't matter, is to have that silver play button. But
absolutely.
When I first started, the goal was not a strong goal, was to get, I remember my first major goal in my head was to get 500 subscribers. And then it was 1,000 subscribers. Then it was 2. Then it was 3. It was usually 1,000 at a time. And then I think after like 6,000, 7,000 subscribers, it was like, let me reach to 10,000. And I think after 10,000, I kind of stopped looking at it because the growth was consistent. So I kind of know what it's going to be like. But I focus more, the number one trend I focus on that analytics is the hours. And I think that's the true insight into my channel growth. And that's the one where I have the arrow up, which always pleases me. I can have subscribers down, I can have views down, but if that green arrow is up for the hours, then I'm doing
right?
The watch hours, sorry, yeah. That's the one that I really keep track of, and it's always, I'm very happy, is always going up, because I think majority of my views are from my older videos, and they kind of, there's the seasons. But going back to the goal, if I had to commit to an answer, my ultimate goal would be the silver play button. And who knows? Who knows? I mean, I know you've interviewed plenty of guys who have that silver play button. What's after silver? I think is it the million or the 500,000?
I think it's gold, and I think that is I think it's 1 million, yeah.
I don't know how it jumps from 100,000 to 1 million. So maybe, I remember when I was starting, I saw people with 2,000 subscribers, and I would be in awe, like, how did they get, like, wow. And then I remember looking at people at 10,000. So you kind of get used to it.
You're on your way, though. I mean, if you have over 14,000,
like
that's
I don't know, 100, whatever I have, 12,000 something is far away from 100,000. But again, YouTube surprises. So who knows? It's
well, listen, I mean, you have 12.3 now.
Okay.
I mean, you're more than 10% of the way there.
Yeah.
And what's impressive to me, and I think is often overlooked, is you're doing this with short form. And when I say short form, I don't mean shorts, but I do mean
like 3 minutes or less.
Music only content. 3 minutes or less. You're not talking, you're just playing, and classical guitar. So I think that is all the more impressive that you've built, in 3 years. And you've put out so many more videos, and they're so charming, and they have such high quality. So I do think that it's well deserved. It's not like you don't deserve them, but it's impressive because it's classical guitar. You're not reviewing video games or something that just, mines views, mines subscribers.
I've thought about doing how-to videos. By the way, this is the first time anyone has ever heard my voice, because I don't have any recordings anywhere of my voice. I think
I love it.
I think when I did some shorts for CCast Media, I did some shorts where you hear me say like one sentence, and that's it. So no one's ever heard my voice. And a lot of the times you don't even see my face in the guitar videos, because I just focus on the guitar playing.
Well, that's the purpose of this podcast. And that's also one of the reasons I reached out to you, because I was so blown away by your playing. And I was like, this guy has never gotten in front of the camera and just talked. And I think people would like to hear from him and learn more about him and just, get to know him a little bit better. And that's really the idea behind GuitarTubers. So that's why I was glad you said yes.
No, and I love your stuff. I really think you're onto something big. I do enjoy your stuff. And I think keep pursuing those people. The people bigger than me, which you've already gotten, but you keep branching and pursuing those people. I really think you're onto something. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the same way that we look at our videos and our channel as sort of a time capsule, I think that these interviews and these kind of stepping out of, because this is way out of my comfort zone. I like to just play the guitar and not talk either. It's always difficult for me to get in front of the camera or talk to the camera, or I think that will be something really awesome to look back on when we're 80, like, oh, I did that. I talked to that person. We hung out. That was cool.
Yeah, all the videos are like a timestamp in life, and I think that's a great way of looking at it.
Definitely.
It's almost like personal home videos of what I was doing at the time. This is where I am, and it's never going away. It's something you can leave behind, and people can admire it or do whatever they want with it, but it's there. You're documenting it.
You're the first person I've talked to that actually shares that same kind of view about the videos. Because when I look at them, I remember exactly what I was doing at that time, and especially if it was like a video we shot on location, I'm like, oh, my wife was behind the camera helping me out there, and oh, we went to have lunch here afterwards, and I remember all that when I watch these videos. So it's nice to hear someone else thinks of them that way. You struck me as a very positive, glass half full type of cat. I could definitely learn. Yeah. I need some of that, because I feel like a lot of times I'm just too negative about things.
Yeah, well,
it's like, this is never gonna work.
It's always easier to go to the negative thoughts. The brain just takes over. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what am I getting out of this? Now, are you doing this financially? Are you doing this spiritually? Are you doing this emotionally? What is it that you really want to get out of it? And when you pinpoint what it is you get out of it, you can push away those negative thoughts, and you realize, hey, it's not a big deal, not a big deal. On the other hand, you celebrate your successes, not because it got you more views, because you got to share with someone. And I think if you decide right now, well, what's it going to look like if the YouTube channel closes tomorrow? Am I still going to be happy? And if the answer is no, I'm not going to be happy, then maybe the focus is too much on one thing. When you know why you're doing it, then you can kind of relax about it. And you're allowed to be stressed, you're allowed to be negative, but as long as it doesn't take over, because if it's not enjoyable, then find something else. There's always something to do. Find something else.
When I first started, I had these illusions that it was going to become, I could make it my full-time career, and all I would need to do is post videos nonstop for a year, and I could be the next Sam Griffin or something. Not knowing that, not taking into account that Sam had already been doing it for 10 years, and that was his second channel, and comparing yourself. I mean, there was so much wrong with starting out like that. First of all, comparing yourself with someone else, and also he came up in a different time in terms of growing his channel, and being a full-time creator takes so much discipline and time commitment over such a long period of time. And, so all of these things that I didn't know when starting out, like, that is such an unrealistic goal. I mean, yes, you can achieve whatever you want to any degree if you're willing to put in the work over an indeterminate amount of time. But that's just a really long-winded way of saying, I think when I first started out, I had these grand aspirations, and I think I've sort of tempered that over time to, like, this needs to be more about myself and just sort of enjoying it.
I always joke around that this is my retirement plan, right? When I retire, it'll be big, and then I can do it full time. But you're right. Everything you said is right. I think people don't realize that being a content creator, particularly YouTube, it is very, very time consuming. And I think people don't realize, especially the bigger channels, just how much time they spend on making a single video, and it is competitive. It's so competitive, and we're in a small niche to begin with, so it's even more competitive.
Yeah.
So, but again, it all goes back to enjoying it. When you're creating those music videos, they're timeless. So someone looking back in 20 years, our audio will be enhanced, our video will be 3D, whatever it'll be, maybe it won't even be YouTube anymore. It'll be like something else. But at the end of the day, they'll go back, I remember 2023, there's a video posted from 2023 of this. And I think, and that's again, going back to the theme of a long-term game in terms of if you're looking at it from a channel growth perspective with these types of videos. So enjoy the moment, and I'll talk to you in 20 years again, and we'll...
I appreciate you taking the time out of your Sunday to chat with me and catch up. I appreciate it. Love your work and love what you're doing, and hope we can stay in touch and connect again, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh. It's always loved talking guitar anytime, and it was nice talking to you. And I'm sure it's not the last time we'll talk.